I have discovered so many great books in 2022. Let's talk about the 10 best books I read so far in 2022 that you should definitely check out. Unfortunately, due to my busy reading schedule and doing YouTube and live, I haven't read as much this year as I've done in previous years, and that is okay. But I've still discovered some fantastic books and some hidden gems. Let's talk about it. I also forgot to mention that this is not a top 10 ranking, so these books are not ranked in any particular order. It's just my top 10 favorite books of the year. First up, we have The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is a debut novel coming from Orbit Books, and this is the first book in the Empire of the Wolf series. Now, what I will say about this book is that this is a perfect read for fantasy readers who are looking for something new in the genre, because this really feels different. The way the story is presented is very interesting, since we basically follow this character called Vonwald, but the story is told through another character's point of view as she tells of the story of what happened. This book starts like a murder mystery, but then slowly things start to unravel, which leads to the unraveling of much bigger events. Also, the characters are fantastic, and the dialogue and the strategizing was riveting to read. This is not an action-packed book, so don't expect a John Gwynne kind of book when you're picking up this book. But this book is filled with riveting dialogue, interesting world building, and fascinating commentary on stuff like law, rights, values, which I loved. I gave this one 4.5 stars, and I absolutely can't wait to read the second book in this trilogy. Alright, we have 9 more books to go, but first, a special thanks to my Patreons who support me and my passion for books. I really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video. Okay, let's talk very briefly about Legends and Latte, because I feel like everyone has heard about this book at this point. I really enjoyed my time reading this book. This is marketed as a cozy fantasy with low stakes, and that perfectly describes it. The story basically follows this character that is tired of being a badass warrior, and she moves to a new place to set up a coffee shop. There are so many other things to the plot, but that is basically the gist of the whole story. Now, if you're looking for a story that will give you all the cozy vibes, has cute characters, great food descriptions, and it's not too serious, then pick up this book. This book has been a huge success, and it is now going to be published by Tor Books, which is really cool, so well done to Travis Baldry. This almost feels like this is going to be the next new thing, right? It started with The House in the Cerulean Sea, and now we have Legends and Latte, both books which have been a huge success. I'm pretty sure we will have a lot more cozy fantasy stories being published in the coming years. Also, Travis sent me this signed and personalized copy after reading this book. How cool is that? I gave this one 5 stars, really enjoyed it. On to the next book. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This book was a huge surprise. I randomly picked up this book since I was in the mood for reading something short and a standalone, so I decided to give this book a try. I really did not know what to expect when picking up this book, and boy was I surprised. This book was nothing like I have ever read before. I won't say much about this book because I really think it's best going totally blind into this one. I knew nothing about this story, and that really enhanced my reading experience reading Piranesi. What I will say is that the writing is beautiful in this book, the plot is extremely weird and unpredictable, and the themes are fantastic. If you want to read something unique, which is also short and is standalone, then pick up Piranesi. I gave this one 5 stars. The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. If you've seen my review of this book, then you will know that I absolutely love this book, and it actually saved me from a reading slump. Now, I read all of John Gwynne's books, and he continuously keeps improving as an author, and I personally think that this is arguably, if not the best book of his. Now, I know a lot of people have given this book 4 or 4.5 stars, but I truly believe that this book is worthy of 5 stars. If you don't know anything about this book, then this is the second book in the Bloodsworn saga, with The Shadow of the Gods being the first book in the series. This is a totally new series, so you can just start reading The Shadow of the Gods. But why do I hold this book in such high regard? Well, firstly, Gwynne has become the master of having more slow moments where the reader is allowed to get more insight into the character's struggles and feelings. In contrast to some of Gwynne's other work, such as The Faithful and the Fallen, which is an extremely fast-paced story, I'm finding the Bloodsworn saga to have more quiet moments which work so well. Also, the world building is fantastic, and Gwynne introduces 2 new POVs in the story that add so much depth to the story. And as always, the action is top notch. I gave this one 5 stars, and I can't wait to read the third book, which comes out next year. Let's talk about a new favorite series of mine, which is written by the Queen of Fantasy, and that is no other than the Live Ship Trader trilogy. Yes, I'm adding all 3 books to the list. I won't say much about this trilogy because I've already done a full spoiler-free video where I'll talk about how this trilogy is one of the best series I have ever read. This trilogy is truly a masterpiece in almost every way. This trilogy has some of the best characters I've ever come across in fantasy. The character arcs and the character dynamics are simply incredible. But what has really stayed with me is how Hobb handles grief, trauma, and identity struggles. I've never seen an author handle grief and trauma in such a realistic and impactful way. It truly feels like Robin Hobb understands human beings so incredibly well. But this trilogy is very much a slow burn. Hobb loves taking her time fleshing out the characters and exploring these themes, and I'm not really sure you can rush a story like this. But I know a lot of readers will struggle with the pacing, so if you're not a fan of slow-paced books or slow burn, then this probably won't be for you. That being said, this as a whole trilogy deserves all the hype and all the praise and gets a well-deserved 5-star rating from me. I'm also really happy to have 3 indie books in my top 10 favorite books of the year so far. First up we have The Exile by Ryan Cahill. Now this is a standalone novella set in the Bound and the Broken universe, and you kind of have to read the other 3 books to read this one, so I'll be very quick about this book. What I will say about Cahill is that he continues to improve on his writing, and The Exile is arguably the best book he has ever written. This is a relatively short story, but it is crazy how much ground Cahill is able to cover in so few pages. This novella is riveting, heartbreaking, and it also expands on the world. I absolutely loved reading this one and I gave it 5 stars. Sorry for interrupting the video. I actually forgot that Ryan Cahill, he actually wrote me into this book, so I have a cameo in The Exile. So it says, Johan Phoenix sent 12 of my companions from this world when we found them at the foothills of Mardural. But after I drove a spear of stone through his Tolkien skull, he begged me to end his life. I obliged. So yes, I get brutally murdered in this book. I think this is the first time I have a cameo in a book. That is so cool. Thank you so much, Ryan. And also, I have a quote on the back. Also, if you haven't already, I recently interviewed Ryan Cahill about how he found success in indie publishing. Cahill has almost become like a superstar in the indie community in the past year, and he has sold more than 40,000 books in only 1 year. So, if you want to learn more about his thoughts on writing, covers, editors, launch, and more, then make sure to check out that interview. Last but not least, I have a book and a novella which are both set in the same universe, and that is The Iron Crown and The Citron Key by L.L. McRae. This was such a pleasant surprise. I read The Citron Key first, which you can read for free by signing up to the author's mailing list, and I loved it. It's only around 100 pages and it's a prequel novella to The Iron Crown, and I would highly recommend giving that novella a try. You can read that novella in 1 or 2 sittings, and I think most readers will thoroughly enjoy that one. There were so many things that I enjoyed both about The Iron Crown and The Citron Key. Firstly, the world building is absolutely fantastic. McRae has a very interesting take on dragons, where they are like spirits who can either bless or curse people. The characters are great and I found it to be very compelling. Also, both The Iron Crown and The Citron Key are paced really well, and the writing style is accessible, which makes this feel like a very quick read. But actually, this book is more like 550 pages. That is not to say that these books are perfect. I mean, no books are, but my only real criticism is that the ending felt a bit undeserved in my opinion. It's not like it was totally undeserved, it just felt a bit convenient how some of the characters ended up meeting. But if you're looking for a character-driven, well-paced fantasy story with dragons, then you need to check out the Dragon Spirit series by L.L. McRae. I gave The Citron Key 5 stars and The Iron Crown 4.5 stars because my enjoyment was so high while I was reading these books. Also, honourable mention to The Warrior by Stephen Arian. This is the second book in the Quest of Heroes duology, and I really enjoyed this one and gave it 4 stars. And that is it. Have you read any of these books? Are any on your TBR? Let me know down in the comments down below, and leave a sun emoji if you are still watching. See you in the next video.